Hello, podcast listeners. This is your host with the most, JJ Gordon, and you have stumbled upon a very special episode of JJ Meets World. Erik Hatch is our guest. You're going to be inspired. You're going to take some time to look at your own life and figure out how you can be a better member of your own community. I'm telling you these things because I truly believe them, because Erik Hatch inspired the crud out of Tucker and I during this. Plus, we talk about raw chicken. All of this and more on this episode of JJ Meets World. And by the way, you can also swing over to patreon.com/JJ Meets World and give us a couple of your dollars.
1, 2, 3, 4. JJ Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. JJ has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called JJ Meets World.
I was driving down to the studio, and I'm pretty sure I saw a raw chicken, an uncooked raw chicken, sitting, laying down, strewn, if you will,
so
in an empty parking space.
So prepped for cooking, yet not in an oven.
I don't know if I'd call it prep for cooking. It wasn't like a chicken carcass, right? It wasn't like someone killed a chicken.
It had been defeathered and
right. So it was ready,
butchered a bit,
and I thought to myself, well, what series of actions took place that ended up with this raw chicken to be in a parking lot? Any thoughts?
Well, I mean,
it's nowhere near a grocery store.
I mean, it's interesting to me that it's not like wrapped in something. You know, did it not look like it had any plastic wrap on it?
It did not, because like one wing was kind of out.
Right. So maybe someone was taking a turkey home and they left it on top of their, or a chicken? Was it a chicken?
It was definitely a chicken. It was not big enough to be a turkey.
So they left their chicken on the roof of their car and then probably just took off without thinking about it. And that's probably what happened. They had him under their arm. They'd already taken it out of the packaging. And they were like, oh, you know what? I should take this to my girlfriend's house and like have her cook it because she's better at cooking birds like this than I am. And then they put it on top of their car, and then they just took off too quickly because they were excited. And they forgot that the chicken was on top of their car.
Interesting you would arrive at that initially, because my first thought was I looked up to see if there were any tall buildings nearby. And if someone had attempted to make this chicken fly once it, from a very tall window, like
I'd be
maybe
worried
the
about
10th
that person, unless it was thrown away in disgust. So, like,
I also thought a jilted lover.
Right. And they're like, well, I'm going to take his favorite chicken he hasn't cooked yet, and I'm just going to throw it on the ground.
Chicken was our anniversary dinner, but I caught you with that floozy, so I'm going to chuck the chicken at you. The worst, in fact, it's still making me sick to my stomach right now, chicken experience I've ever had is I was at the old Playmakers, when it was Playmakers, and I'd ordered chicken fingers, and it was that place was dark to begin with, and I took a bite of the chicken fingers, and I'm like, ugh, why, the breading on this is so mushy and gross, and so I went and I took another bite, and dipped it in ketchup, and I'm like, why is this gross? So I kind of spit it out. Well, it was completely raw inside.
Oh.
It hadn't been cooked at all. And
man.
the way they apologized for me ingesting a full bite of raw chicken was they're like, well, do you want like a shot?
to kill the germs that are in
And I
there.
said, I was like, yes, I will take vodka or bleach.
I'd also like a bunch of cooked chicken that I'm not going to pay for.
Oh, I wasn't going to be able to eat anything the rest. In fact, like right now, I'm almost thinking
That's
like
a good point.
making me want to throw up a little bit. But if you've ever eaten raw chicken, it's just the worst.
Yeah.
Just the worst. I've eaten raw steak. No problem.
Yeah,
I
I mean-
enjoy raw beef.
But I mean, when you say raw steak, was it raw cold or was it just rare?
It was raw cold.
It was raw and cold.
It was a chunk of uncooked steak.
You did it on an accident, or you were
No.
like, oh, I'm going to try this? Why did you do that?
I was at a place and they're like, have you ever tried just uncooked steak? And I'm like, I haven't.
I've heard of people eating what's it called, tiger meat, where
Tiger meat.
It's just raw ground beef.
Yep.
I don't think I could do that. I love me some meat, but I want my meat to be set on fire first. I really, really do.
What about the sushi? Do you like sushi?
I do like sushi, and that's certainly the exception. But the meat that's in there, it's usually a fish meat or something. You know, it's not going to have raw chicken or raw beef in it. And the raw meat itself is so small compared to the rest of the piece of sushi that it's definitely like a flavor combination that complements itself.
Been thinking about opening a restaurant called JJ's Pushi, and it's pork sushi.
Yeah, and
my,
it's raw.
My Pushi is the best.
Your Pushi better be cooked. Better be tempura.
Nope.
Better be tempura
it's
fried.
raw. It's just raw pork.
I don't know if you've got a good enough business model to get a loan, but good luck to you with
I'm
that.
going to try. I mean, there's got to be a bank or a loan shark out there who will take a risk on me for that.
Do you think any banker has written sort of like a tell-all, like these are the craziest business ideas people came to me looking for a loan for, and this is the one?
If there has, and somebody has read it, would you please write into JJ Meets World? You can find us online at jjmeetsworld.com.
Or if you are now a retired banker who stands to lose nothing by just letting go of these old stories, you should just come on JJ Meets World.
If you've got a good tale or two or some yarn that you'd like to unspool in front of us, that would be great. Hey, speaking of great, our guest today, we've been trying to get him for a while, and
busy guy. He's in demand.
He's a very busy guy, and we finally found a little break in his schedule, and we're really lucky and very honored that Erik Hatch made some time today. We've had a lot of previous guests who are in Erik's sphere of influence, whether they're people who work with him or they're people who volunteer with him. Erik's story is very, very cool. It's very unique.
You've definitely seen this guy's face around town if you live in the
he's
FM
on
area.
Billboards. He's in commercials. He's on the radio.
Is hatch a verb yet? I mean, it's got to be
like to hatch.
Getting hatched.
Yeah.
In that context, not hatching out of an egg, but
I am surprised at all the ways he's shoved his name into things.
Has he ever said hatchify? Like, all right, I like this room. We got to hatchify it.
We got to hatchify it. That's a good question. Like, I keep every time I see him and I pat him on the back, I'm like, it's my hatchback. I know a previous guest, Natalie Deutsch, had a thing made called the Cabbage Hatch Kids.
That's right.
I think so. There's plenty of great opportunities there,
which is funny because Natalie looks like a Cabbage Patch Kid.
I know, it just works out perfectly. She was destined to be a part of that team.
Works on many levels.
Folks, sit back, relax. You're going to really enjoy this episode. And by the way, if you have to take a pause in the middle because maybe you need to, like, I don't know, use a bathroom or anything like that, it'd be a prime opportunity to go to patreon.com/JJMeetsWorld and consider donating to our cause here at JJ Meets World because we put out every single episode for free.
Twice a week.
Without fail. No failures.
So
and you're going to realize why it's important I'm saying that as you listen to this episode of JJ Meets World with Erik Hatch.
JJ Meets World.
You ready to start this thing?
I don't even know where we're going, but I'm here for the ride.
It feels like we started this podcast like 10 years ago. And now is just the time when people are getting to listen to the snippet of a conversation.
We finally remember to press the record button.
That's right.
10 years. That's what happened.
Erik Hatch, welcome to JJ Meets World. We're really excited to have you.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it.
Let's start with this. Let's tell the people a little bit about what your story is. I get a chance to produce your program on KFGO every week, and so I've gotten to know you a little bit through that, and then we've had a lot of personal hangouts. I consider you a friend. I hope you consider me a friend.
I didn't get invited to your wedding, but that's fine.
Yeah.
It was underwhelming. You wouldn't have liked it.
It's just your typical kilt wedding with comedians and free beer. Was it free beer?
There was free beer.
Damn it!
And free wine.
That's
a lot of really good meatballs, too.
Yeah.
That's fine. No, we're off to a great start.
Yeah. So now that
I too
awkwardness
consider
is
you
in
a
the room.
friend. Yeah.
Did you invite JJ to your wedding?
JJ was a what is that? High to a pig's eye? Or was that Mere's eye? What is that?
I say knee high to a grasshopper.
Knee high to a pig's eye. That's what I was waiting to say.
Great. So he evened the score then is what he didn't go to your wedding.
Right.
So you didn't get to go to his.
But I do get a pie from Erik every single year. I go to the Hatch Realty Pie Day. And I go to Hatchstock, and he feeds and gets me nice and toasty there. And then I also do date night.
Yeah, and then I mean, you come for free food, and then I hire the line benders, and then I help keep you employed at KFGO. But that's fine. I really didn't want to get invited to your wedding.
That's right.
I give great gifts, and I wouldn't have shown up. So I'm the perfect guest. I always go to the ATM, and I say, what would this person most like? And I said they registered at Gate City Bank.
What if I said I knew you were going to be out of town for my wedding anyway?
if you knew I was going to be, and I wasn't, I was in town.
I was really playing the odds
nice
on
try.
that one.
No, nice try.
We should have done this before the wedding, JJ. Now
I
we're just
know.
off to a weird
Yeah.
start.
Well, so did you experience this at all with your wedding? A lot of people have come up to me and said, why wasn't I invited to your wedding?
It's so tough, man.
It is.
And I'm actually, all joking aside, I am a little bit offended that you didn't invite me.
Are you really?
No, like,
I'm super happy you didn't. I asked him not to invite you.
I invited a lot of your ex-girlfriends, and so it was really going to be awkward if you had showed up.
well, they're totally still into me. Because I've really kept myself together all these years. It's like I am in the worst shape of my life, and that shape is pear, and my hair is just so receding.
I could have been married to the Hatch.
Yeah.
The Hatch.
Well, my wife started dating me when I was making $24,000 a year and was a youth director, and so I knew that she was signing up for somebody with a very mediocre life and was eventually going to really let himself go. And so she's a keeper.
I think that's what Jack Nicholson said about his first wife. He goes, "She loved me before I was Jack Nicholson." They like that impression? How'd I do?
It was like he was in the room with me.
right
It
now.
was so
know.
good.
I wish I had sunglasses on. And then it didn't work out for them, but it's going to work out for
Yeah.
you and your lovely
Oh,
wife.
good.
Who, by the way, I don't think I've ever had a chance to meet in person.
She's kind of like the woman behind the curtain. She does all the work, and I just try to take all the credit.
It's kind of what Jill does for me.
Really? Honestly, I think that you and I are very similar people, and I think that our wives are probably pretty similar too. And my wife doesn't love large social interactions, and if you put a microphone in her hand, she will cry and shake and convulse in fear. And for me, I'm so comfortable with a microphone in my hand, and I don't mind being the butt of the jokes, and that would just crush some people. And for me, I love it. And so my wife is a first grade teacher and soft and gentle and beautiful and everything I am not.
Oh, isn't that sweet?
Yeah.
Were those the vows?
That's what she told me to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jill and I, we had a conversation about whether or not we were going to write our own vows, and she was like, "Absolutely not."
Yeah.
She goes, "Why would I want
she
to?"
wouldn't be able to compete with you.
Well, and I don't even think
crush
it's that.
her.
Here's the thing, because I'd try and make some kind of a joke, and Jill would be very sentimental and serious the whole time. So it would probably look like I was trying to ham it up.
Right.
So all the older folks in the room would be like, "Why is she marrying that man?
Yeah.
This is her out."
They were asking that anyway.
Anyway,
Yeah, I don't think it was the vows that would have set them off.
That was
It would
the
have been,
discussion
Have
at
you
our
seen
table.
JJ? JJ does a lot of male modeling, but it's always the before picture.
yeah, exactly, right? I'm always the
That's
schlumpy
actually-
gray background, like, brr. And then they bring in some Adonis and
Yeah.
then Photoshop my head on it.
That's actually my go-to joke because I'm the before picture in things. So I gave you my joke, so that was a great gift.
So
You're welcome.
Okay, so this is a good segue into this. Some of my favorite Erik Hatch stories are things he's told me about moments in a person's life that they would much rather forget than remember.
Yeah.
For example, would you tell your pizza story?
I have a lot of pizza stories, but I think I know the one you're referencing. I found myself in junior high. Went to Ben Franklin Junior High in Fargo, North Dakota, and every day I seemed to have like an open hour, and I would be able to go home for a snack before football practice. Or this was maybe even before the season was in full swing. So school had not started, but football had started. And so I would go home and I would have a 99-cent Totino's party pizza as a snack, because what do you eat between lunch and dinner? Well, another meal, right? And a 99-cent Totino's party pizza. And so you bake it at like 450 degrees for 8 minutes, and it comes out. And if you're wise like I am, you save on dishes by cutting it and you just put it on the cardboard that it came in, right? Nowadays comes in plastic, and it's an outrage. I actually have some issues with the Totino's people.
No cardboard whatsoever?
No cardboard.
Really?
No, none. It's just a plastic bag.
Oh, that's shocking to
And
me.
it's
I didn't
now,
find that out yet.
And it's not circular anymore. It's rectangular. I'm upset. You have struck a nerve here.
I really poked the bear on that
That's
one.
right. So I would eat this pizza every day as a snack, and the traditional habit of chubby young Eric, which is the same as chubby old Eric now, is you take the pizza and you walk to the couch and you put a pillow on your lap and you put the meal on top of the pillow. You both are nodding like, yeah, I've done this lots. And so in one hand, I'm holding a can of Mountain Dew, or it might have been All Sport, because I was getting ready for football.
Drink some sport before I go sport up tonight.
That's right. And so I took a bite without ever letting the pizza cool off, and the toppings fell off. Now, this is straight out of 450 degrees. I'm holding pizza in my left hand and holding Mountain Dew in my right, and I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? And finally, I set the pizza down and wiped off the pizza on my chin, as well as the skin on my chin, and I had a second-degree burn. I then missed 3 weeks of football practice with a pizza-related injury because I couldn't strap my helmet on. So was that the story you were referencing,
That's
JJ?
the one. That's
Okay.
the one.
Oh, man.
I think of that whenever I walk down the frozen pizza aisle
Do you
now.
really?
Yeah, and I'll tell people I'm shopping with. I told my sister last year. I told Jill one day, and I said, "This is the cautionary tale that people should know." And it's not an anti-pizza at all.
I am pro pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got to cool off a bit.
I, in fact, remember in one of your old radio gigs, I was in studio one day and you guys were doing like a pizza taste test with one of your co-hosts. And he was able to identify like a blind taste test of every frozen pizza brand. Ooh. And that man is actually married. Like it was shocking.
It was previous guest Scotch Noel Anderson. And I was pretty shocked because he would take a small bite and go, "Oh, Pizza Corner. Oh, that's got to be Tombstone." Nailed every single one. Yeah. And then I tried to really confuse him by putting a hot stuff in there, and he identified the hot stuff pizza as well right off the bat.
What a gift.
You have to wonder that maybe at one point, there will be some kind of apocalyptic world we'll all live in where gasoline is at a shortage and a Thunderdome experience. And that will actually play out for Scotch.
And Nicolas Cage will somehow be there, too. It's an incredible tale.
Right.
Yeah.
Covered in bees.
This kind of ties into to Andrew Jason, because we talked about how, I think he talked about how grocery stores that devote an entire aisle to frozen pizza actually do far better, just objectively. Like if you open a grocery store, you should have an entire aisle for frozen pizza. And so like Hornbacher's does now. You go to Hornbacher's, it's mostly frozen pizza in that large aisle. So frozen pizza is just a huge seller.
I see where you're going, but I would challenge a place like the local grocery store, and I would say that, can you please put next to the vegetables the frozen pizza? So like I'm not just like a 150 yards away from anything that I actually should be putting in my body, because every step I take away from the vegetable aisle is judgment. Okay. I'm judging myself mostly. You don't have to do this. You're strong enough. You can stay by the kale. And then I'm just, lots of matzah for me.
When are we going to see a Hatch brand frozen pizza? I feel like that's the next industry that you should really conquer.
My gosh.
There's got to be white label companies out there too, so you could always start just white labeling it until you figure out the actual recipe for a Hatch style pizza.
Did you not listen to his story? This man's a connoisseur. He's not going to let just any pizza carry his name.
Did you not hear what I said? I said many white labels. So you just got to find the right white label that sounds delicious.
This is.
I don't know about that.
I'll fight you.
I will. I'll fight you too.
This is pretty intense right
JJ
now.
and I's pizza rivalry goes back a long ways, especially when we lived together for a year, and we would order pizzas from different places and then basically work the delivery guys against each other. So whoever got to us first would get the bigger tip.
Yeah, we'd each throw an additional $5 on the couch, and whichever pizza guy got there first would get an additional $5 added onto their tip.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Did you tell them they were racing?
No.
But they knew. They always ended up arriving maybe within like a minute of each other. So one guy's walking back to the car, counting his dollars, while the other guy's walking up.
Did you know I am 38 years old, and every time I order from certain pizza places in town, I still get the college special?
Oh,
Nice.
It's a pretty great deal. And for years, I would order on both Thanksgiving and Christmas Day. I would order a large deep dish pepperoni pizza from Pizza Patrol, which of course is one of the ways in which I keep all my curves is dedication. After you gluttonize yourself through the holidays, you then order pizza because you're just tired of the 9,000 calories you had consumed previously. And it just became tradition for me. And they wouldn't allow the college special on those holidays. And so the pizza was like $30, but I would tip every single time. I would give the driver $100.
Oh, cool.
And I feel like I'm a modern day do-gooder. Is they were stuck working Christmas or Thanksgiving, and I wanted a pizza, and I was okay gifting that to them. And I feel like I've carried that trend on as well for lemonade stands. It's one of my favorite things to do is you go up to a lemonade stand, and it's 50 cents or whatever for their mediocre Kool-Aid or lemonade, and I'll crumple up a bill, and I'll hand it to them, and I'll say, keep the change, and then I will slowly drive off like a predator, right? Maybe that was the wrong word choice.
I don't think a predator would leave.
Okay, thank you. So I'm slowly driving off like a normal person. But I'm slowly driving off, looking in my rearview mirror, just watching the kid. And then you hear every time like, oh my gosh! Mom! Mom! And it's fantastic. It brings me so much joy. And then I just hope to bring that kind of joy to pizza delivery guys and to lemonade stand workers all throughout the world.
Oh, so if you see Erik Hatch coming, you tell your kids, go out there. Go, 5 of you, go out there
There's
right
a
now.
sucker.
By the way, you said you went to Ben Franklin Junior High School. What years were you there?
So I graduated from Fargo North in 98. So I was at Ben Franklin. It would have been 93, 92 through 94, 95, something like that.
You might have just missed my dad.
Who's your dad?
Mr. Lucas, Bill Lucas.
I know who your dad is.
Oh, you do?
Come on, of course.
I don't know.
Everybody knows who your dad is.
I just
Have you been to the Red Hawks, Tucker?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It's wonderful.
I remember him coming home with an Ole and Lena joke book to memorize for his audition for that role.
Well, to give you perspective, one of my best friends is Rich McFarlane, who was Hawkeye at the Red Hawks, and then now is a drama teacher at Red River High School in Grand Forks. Yep.
Cool.
So I never took theater.
Okay. He was an English teacher too, but I think he stopped doing that maybe 91 or 92. I really can't remember. So
okay,
cool.
My sister had your dad as a teacher because she always raved about him.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome.
Good things or bad things?
He said raved.
Raved. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I've been to 2 raves in my life, and they were
Good or bad?
terrifying.
You know
all
what?
those glow sticks everywhere.
I love that you just brought up glow sticks. So I have a daughter who's 4. She just turned 4 on Sunday, so she's freshly 4, and she got as a birthday present from her teacher. She got a glow stick. It was like a bracelet glow stick. And so last night we went to bed, and she goes to bed at 7:30, and we say prayers and we read a book and we snuggle, and she wouldn't go to bed unless she had the glow stick with her. And so we turned the lights off and we played some games with it. And then sure enough, I'm laying in bed and we look into the monitor and she's sleeping, but she has attached to her face the glow stick. And so we have this dark room with this like bright light attached to my daughter's face. She was raving. Yeah.
She was.
Yeah.
You've got a little raver on your
Yes,
hand.
I do.
How
Felt nice.
adorable.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
4 years old, that's a fun age, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, fun for
It's
them.
90% of the time, it's the most fantastic gig, but she can turn on a dime. And like, I do sales for a living, right? I do sales and service and have some businesses, and I'm constantly negotiating. And that 4-year-old out negotiates me all the damn time.
Really?
Over the top. I am wrapped around her little finger, and she has this ability to get whatever she wants almost whenever she wants. And I'd like to think I'm the tough dad. Like, I'm going to be the dad that's fun-loving, but when I raise my voice and I say something sternly, she's totally going to listen. And she doesn't. And then I realize I have no follow-through with my threat. Like, I'll say, like, I'll take away your glow stick. She'll be like, my teacher will give me one tomorrow. And well, no, the teacher won't, but I can't reason with her. And so she throws a hysterical melting fit. And this is every once in a while, right? Like, it's not every moment, but she'll break down. And my wife, Emily, and I are like, what do we do? Do we give her the glow stick? Like, I don't want to put up with this anymore. Like, 4-year-olds are so great 90% of the time. And the other 10% of the time, you just don't want to live with them.
What's the furthest you've gone, like, on a road trip with her? Like
Omaha.
Omaha.
Yeah, 6 hours, 6.5 hours
drive.
probably.
It's a good
Well,
drive.
when you have young kids, because I have a son Simon who's 2 as well. When you travel with kids, you can't go Fargo to Sioux Falls in one shot. You can't go Fargo to Omaha in one shot. Like, you can't go 4 to 6 hours in a vehicle because there's potty breaks. Even though we put her in a pull-up for safety, like, you don't want her to all of a sudden give up on that. And then there's meltdowns, and so it's every 2 hours. Like, thank God Watertown is there.
Yeah,
right?
I was gonna say, so that's why Watertown exists.
I think so. It's potty breaks.
Yeah, stop there. Just pull into the Terry Redland Museum when you
so.
when
That's
you
why
go
we call
in.
it Watertown.
She is a. There you go.
Not to be confused with Poopsburg.
There it is. Yeah. I'm trying
Were
not
you
to laugh at
waiting?
that. I'm trying to be really mature and not laugh at that joke.
I don't
you
run
want
a
to,
but
re-
it's pretty funny.
We don't run a
Poopsburg.
realty company, so we can just laugh at poop jokes all day long, and we're good with that.
That's rich.
Okay, so let's talk about Erik Hatch as a human being.
Okay.
So I think it's been a long time since this community has seen someone who has tried so hard to invest in it. And I want to commend you. And I don't think I've ever told you this like one-on-one, but I am amazed at everything you do to make this place a better place to live.
Thanks,
for
man.
not only the people who work for you, who just speaking about raving, who rave about you, but the people who you benefit. Right now, you're chairing the United Ways
I am.
campaign.
Yep.
And just the other day, Jill came home and she said, Erik Hatch talked to everyone at Crystal Sugar, and she goes, by the end of it, she goes, I'm writing checks and I'm doing all of this stuff. She goes, this is the 10th time someone has talked about the United Way there, but no one has ever connected the way that you do.
Thanks for that.
So tell me why community is important to you.
20 minutes ago, you asked me a question in a very different tone, a very different framing, and you said, tell me about your life, right? And now you're saying why community is important, and I actually think the answer is the same. Whichever of those questions you're going to ask me, I'll share with you that I was born trailer trash, you know? You can take Erik out of the trailer, but you can't take the trailer out of Erik. And I grew up with a very meager beginning. My dad abandoned our family when I was 2 years old. My sister was 6, and I was 2, and so never knew life with a dad. And we lived in this rundown trailer in Argusville, North Dakota, that's now been burned down because it was so condemned and nasty. And when my mom decided to move to the big city, she moved 10 miles into Fargo. And there we lived in an apartment building where I shared a room with my sister. Then when I got older, my sister had to share a room with my mom. And like that's not like dirt poor, you know. We were just a hair above dirt poor, and my mom worked 70 hours a week just to make sure that I didn't have to wear Payless shoes. Turns out I like Payless shoes, but as a kid, that mattered to me a lot. That image and trying to just be a normal kid. And I knew no life outside of what I had, and I thought I had a great life, and I did because I had people that loved me. I had an aunt that lived in town and 4 cousins, as well as my sister and my mom. Here's a quick little side story. I think you'll appreciate this. Is the only cousin I had that was in town is a guy, very active in theater, straight as the day is long, but just not like the masculine man's man, right? And so everything in my life was revolved around estrogen. And so I remember when I was about 8 years old, we went to the Speakeasy, and we went to the Speakeasy for a Sunday lunch, and my sister received a gift of a purse. And I kept asking, like, why does Tanya get this purse? Why does she get this gift? This doesn't make any sense. And in the purse were tampons celebrating her first period. And that was lunch in my family. That was our celebratory lunch, was happy period day to my sister. Is that what it's called, period day?
Yeah.
And you went to the restaurant that specializes in like red sauce.
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
there it
I mean,
was.
there was so
There it
much
was.
going on there.
Yeah, there it was. I never tied that together, but thank you for ruining that family memory for me.
By the way, Wednesdays it's got like an all-you-can-eat pasta bar going on.
So good.
If you haven't been to the Speakeasy in a while, you're missing out.
I do still care for the Speakeasy quite
Good
a
job
bit.
of ruining that beautiful family memory of his family celebrating his sister's
Yeah.
first period.
They also are really good about putting beets, those pickled beets, on your plate too. I love it. It's all good.
That's good.
And Italian nachos, if you haven't tried those.
I do. Yeah, I care for those a lot.
We digress.
Yeah, so I bring that up because I had this great family, but I had no male role models whatsoever. I looked around and I didn't know what it was like to be a man. I had no idea. People ask me what kind of truck I drive, and I say black. because I have no knowledge of any of that stuff. My wife and I were driving to Minneapolis a couple weeks ago. My truck broke down, and she's like, "Can't you open the hood and fix it?" And I think I laughed in her face, like, "No, I have no idea how to be a typical quote unquote man." I was raised by caretakers. And men are caretakers, women are caretakers, but I had this sea of estrogen around me that showed compassion and showed grace and showed love and understanding. And I had the opportunity to have a big brother through the Big Brother, Big Sister program. It was very short-lived. But the fun part is that the village, which does the Big Brother, Big Sister program, is funded partially through the United Way. And so the work I'm doing now is to try to care for that kid that was me. You know, all I needed when I was a kid was somebody to care about me. And I looked around and searched for it. And I had moments and mentors and people who showed up to be consistent in my life when everything in my life was inconsistent. I was 15 years old. My mom got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, lived about 5 more years, and then died when I was in college. And every moment in my life, I had people step up as firefighters running towards me. There were lots of people that ran away from me too. And I've failed big as a businessman, and I've messed up over and over again. And I learn every time where the firefighters are and where the people who are running from the flames are. And so for me, that's a bit of my life, my story. But you asked a poignant question of why am I engaged in the community? And it's because there's that next little Erik Hatch out there who probably needs somebody to love him and care for him, and they'll never even be connected. And so I used to think that I wanted to write this incredible autobiography about my life, that I climbed Kilimanjaro, or I knew how to spell Kilimanjaro, like these great things. And I was talking with my friend Mark Anderson, who owns Black Ridge Bank, and we were talking about this, and he said, you know, some people in your life are maybe a sentence or two, and others are a full paragraph, and then there's some that are a full chapter. And in that conversation, we came to the conclusion that having our own autobiography isn't the real piece of value in life, but instead to be a chapter in as many other books as possible is what life is about. And so for me, it gives me incredible purpose. It gives me meaning. I feel like I am aligned with who God made me to be when I'm serving other people. Every time I try to take, I feel pretty bad. Like you think you're getting everything you want by taking, but man, you can have everything you want by giving. And there is a cheesy little line, but I subscribe to it, and it has forever changed my life.
It's true.
Well, and you're one of those individuals who, if I asked for the shirt off your back, I'm pretty sure you'd be unbuttoning it before you asked what size I wear.
I hope so.
And I noticed that you do that for people that you've just met. I noticed that you do that with people you've known for many, many years. And it's a quality that I think a lot of people are missing today. It's a quality that is very much a part of generations past. Today, everyone wants their name on the side of a building if they're going to donate money to it. People are looking for what's their legacy going to be. They're looking for their autobiography, right? And I notice with you, it's different. And maybe it's just the fact that you're a fun guy and the world hasn't stomped you down enough to the point of where you're jaded and you just forget it. I'm just going to get a job at an insurance company and be done with it. But at what point is enough? Or is there always going to be the next thing that you want to try, the next thing that you want to achieve?
Loaded question there.
It really is.
I'd say this first, JJ, is I intentionally put my name on things. And I've struggled. Faith is an important part of my life, and there's scripture that talks about basically if you're going to be generous and giving, to not let somebody else know about it. And I believe that there's truth in that. But I think the intention is to not be you're not supposed to let other people know if you're being boastful about it. But I think everything in this world is contagious. I think generosity is contagious. I think that negativity is contagious. I think that humor and optimism and joy, those are contagious things. And so I choose to let people know that I'm giving. So, for example, if there's a touchdown scored for a home Bison football game, my name comes over the loudspeaker and on the big screens, and it says, Hatch Realty and Erik Hatch just donated another $500 to the United Way. My name's on everything. My face is on things because I understand marketing and I understand what it is to be a mascot. I'm really the Colonel Sanders of our business, right? It's like I created the recipe, but I'm not in the kitchen anymore.
Are you going to give someone a scholarship if they name their baby after you?
Probably.
Okay, I'll get working on that right away.
Oh, that was a visual. Okay.
We're going to have a little baby and I'm going to put a little ginger beard on it.
That does sound nice. Would you name your baby Erik or Hatch?
I think I'd name my baby Hatch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hatch Gordon.
Hatch Gordon.
That sounds like a superhero.
It does, doesn't it?
And so to your question is, I have chosen this path of, I think, being generous and being a servant because it's natural to who I am. I do put my name on things because I understand the branding of it. I don't need a building named after me, but I'd love for people to know the reason behind it. And the reason behind it is I have to understand what my call is in this life. So here's a little bit of a story that'll give some background. I just burped. That was good.
That's typical. Our audience is super used to that. Don't worry about it.
I'm surprised you're not opening a bag of Fritos right now. That's usually what happens about this point in the show.
Directly into the microphone.
So I used to do youth ministry at a local church and was surrounded by things like junior high school kids, which were Doritos and feet, essentially. So when you talk about those smells, it is the lock-in smell of any church or whatever, or a slumber party or a sleepover or whatever.
Ben
it's gonna
Franklin
be.
is coming back to me
Yep,
right
you
now
can
as you
smell
talk
it.
about
Yep.
it.
So when you talked about Fritos, it triggered something in me. And so I was passionate about kids, and as I was passionate about kids, it really transformed itself into being passionate about adults. And I was passionate about adults. I wanted to figure out what to do with my life. And these kids used to ask me, like, Erik, what's the meaning of life? And so when I worked at a church, I was supposed to give them scripture and these other things to talk about it. And there's truth in that. And I couldn't necessarily find something that created language that we all agreed with. And so I've been searching and really trying to figure out, what the hell am I doing with my life? Like, I don't want to show up and work at that insurance agency. Not that there's anything wrong with an insurance agency. That just isn't a life that feels like it brings energy to the world, at least for me. And so in searching for what life is all about, I've studied, I've read, and I found myself a few years ago at something called the GLS, the Global Leadership Summit. So it's Melinda Gates and Colin Powell and Simon Sinek and all these awesome speakers alongside some really powerful pastors. And so it's rooted in faith, but it's all about leadership. And I walk up and I see an old youth group kid of mine named Dan. And Dan just had his third kid under the age of 4. Like an obscene headache as far as I'm concerned. And I say, Dan, how you doing, man? How you doing with 3 kids? He said, well, God's first commandment is to be fruitful and multiply. So I'm taking him literally. I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. Bible joke, hilarious, right? And I go in and I just keep hearing this theme of multiplied. And that's what the whole conference for 2 days is about. And the last day, that Friday, I go with my team. There's 8 of us, and we walk over from where it's at over to Lucy's to get some Chinese food for lunch. And we sit down, and we're talking about what we're learning, what we're hearing, and we all agreed that we kept hearing multiplied. And I shared with them the story about Dan, my old youth group kid. And then I said, and they knew of my story, and my wife and I had just welcomed in our daughter Finley into the world. And we dealt with infertility for 6 years, miscarriages and failed reproductive medicine rounds. And it was so exhausting. And it's one of the hardest things I've ever gone through in my life. And so we welcomed in, once we finally got pregnant, and we welcomed in a birth photographer and videographer into the room, which is a really personal time. Fortunately, she knows all the right angles, so it's something I'll actually watch again.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And
there's no like GoPro in the doctor's head or something.
Jeez, no. We have gone some places today, and I like it. And so as I'm in this moment, and afterwards she says, Erik, Emily, what do you want as like the soundtrack for this? And there's a band called Need to Breathe, and Need to Breathe has a song called Multiplied. And I said, that's what I want as our anthem. That's what I want as this song about my daughter. And so I'm telling this at this lunch, at this lunch over Chinese food, and I'm like, I just keep hearing multiplied. I keep hearing multiplied. I don't know what it means. And I go back, and the main guy who's running the ship says, okay, I want everybody to pull out their journals, and I'm going to give you some formulated journal questions. And I'm just like, in 99% of the situations, I'm like, okay, now I'm going to check my phone and go to the bathroom and not do any of this crap that you're forcing me to do. I don't want to write about my feelings. But I was in the moment. And I was in that 1%. And so I started journaling some things. And then he asked a question, and I'm journaling more. And then he asked a question. He said, what do you want your life to be about? What do you want? What do you want to do in this world? And so I'm journaling, and then the band starts playing Multiplied by Need to Breathe.
Wow.
And I weep these little baby tears that I hadn't cried in probably 10 years. And they were different tears. They weren't tears of sadness. They weren't tears of being defeated and lonely. It was tears of clarity and alignment with who I think I was made to be. And who I was made to be, I think, is somebody who multiplies. And that's a weird word for a lot of people, but I told you before that everything's contagious, right? And it's my call, my duty, my charge to try to create opportunities for people in this world that they wouldn't be able to curate or wouldn't have the guts to go and do themselves. I am stopping no time soon. I am on fire for starting businesses. I'm on fire for creating opportunities for people. I don't need more wealth, but wealth that comes to me serves a purpose and is multiplied plentifully for this community, for the people that I have the privilege of working with. And my job is that when people ask me how many people do I have that work for me, I'll say I don't have any. I work for them every day. And then that's the honest to God's truth, is that my job is to work for our people every day. And it is not as pretty as it sounds. It is not as good and smooth sailing as I make it out to be, because we are just like every other hot mess dumpster fire of a business. But I had somebody say to me a year or so ago, this is a guy who's helped me get on radio, and he said to me, Eric, you got to start changing your message. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you got to stop talking about your failures. You need to start talking about all the great things you're doing. And he said that, and I just went like, ugh. I don't want the front page of the paper to say like Erik Hatch is incredible. I want the front page of the paper to say like Erik Hatch has messed up a lot. And that's a weird thing, but like if I talk about how great I am, I think it's blowing hot air at people. And if you talk about your insecurities and your failures, I think people really lean in.
Failure is valuable. Failure is incredibly
think so.
valuable. I mean, I've said it as a joke before when someone asks me where did I go to college, and I say it was just failure. It was just that's all, because I don't have a degree, and the act of surviving failure and then having a healthy view of it seems to be the one ingredient for all successful people that you can't really take away.
Yeah,
I mean, anyone who, if I guess we're going to try to give a broad definition of success, but let's say just career success, right? Doing the thing that you want to do and getting to the point that you want to be at. I just cannot see a way of doing it without some kind of failure along the way, because none of us are perfect. There is no human being that is able to just create something from whole cloth, and it's beautiful. If you think of like your favorite book, you know, maybe a book that you've read multiple times, or you really love the prose of it. Those words didn't just come out of the author's head like that, and that was it.
Yeah.
They rewrote that time and time again. They had an editor look at it. They had a publisher look at it. They had friends and family look at it. Nothing comes out perfect like that. And you have to be open to making and owning mistakes to get there.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think your message is right to be talking about the ways you failed and how you've
I hope so.
how you've learned from them and how those failures have fed into your current success.
Please smack me if I stop failing, because it means I'm no longer trying to multiply. You know, sometimes you got to divide before you multiply, and you gotta burn some things down in order to build some things up. And I'm gonna do it wrong a lot, but I'm not afraid to try.
So here's a follow-up question then on that topic. You were saying, you know, right now you're on fire, right? You're on fire with the businesses you're starting, but never stop failing. So what would be a recent failure in your life that you'd say you're either you've now learned from, or you're in the process of learning from?
I had on JJ Meets World.
He's still learning about it.
I'm dealing with my own personal failures right now. I'm a pretty intense person. I don't show up and jog a block. I'm going to run a marathon. I'm not going to do something small. I'm always all in, but I'm really hot and cold on things. I'm like super manic and super depressive on things. And right now, my health, I'm failing really big time. I can pinpoint the stresses in my life and the things that have led to it, but I've stopped taking care of myself. And it has emptied my tank. I've put on, probably about 15 pounds in the last 2 months. And I don't know if you've had food before, but it is delicious, And for me,
I've heard that before. Someone told me yesterday that food was good.
Yeah, we should try it.
Should check it out sometime.
But I'm a sympathy eater, and I'm recognizing that I have stresses in my life that have been heavy because business isn't easy and failure is constant, and so those take the life out of me, and oddly they also give me life, and so it's this interesting balance. But I am not taking great care of myself right now, and it affects everything. I don't believe there's a separation between work and personal. At least as an entrepreneur, there's not. It's just all life. I've subscribed to a lifestyle, and this lifestyle means that I have to juggle a whole lot of balls in the air at once. And the problem is that some of these you don't bounce back from. Some of these balls are going to be rubber balls, and when you drop them, they'll bounce back. Maybe not as high, but they'll bounce back. And for me, my health it's a Fabergé egg that I'm juggling right now, and I'm dropping it. And if it breaks, I got nothing else. So it's heavy. It's real life stuff. Yeah.
It is. I mean,
this is maybe not as fun as you want it to be. So
this is exactly what we dig
this
into.
This is the good stuff. I mean, this has been affecting my life a lot this year too, which is why I'm asking about it. Because 2018 has been a pretty crazy year for me. I left a long-term job that I kind of feel like I failed at a lot of ways. I had a long-term romantic relationship that ended this year, and
it's got to be tough.
And those things are tough. But then I've said, since those two things have happened, I've said it to JJ and some family members is, I'm making less money than I have in the past 10, 12 years. I'm doing far less. I'm not progressing my career in any way. But I'm also happier than I've been in the past 10 or 12 years. And that failure is usually painful in the moment no matter what. But just because it's painful in that moment, there's always another side to it, and the way to get to the other side of it, it seems to change. So what I bet would have crippled me if this had all happened to me 5 years ago, the person I was then versus the person I am now, it's just totally different. Those failures seem to have freed my life now, which is interesting. So now I'm pursuing new opportunities, and I'm hopeful for the future, and I don't really have a lot of stress, and it works. I still want to, forge a path forward, but I learned at least this year to not focus on the fact that I failed, just learn from the fact that I failed and what did I learn from it, and apply those lessons to the next thing.
Living in that failure and understanding that it doesn't define you, but it actually creates who your better self is going to be.
Right, and it drains the fear out of it. So if you can get rid of the fear of failure, it's fine to fear the pain of it, because pain sucks. But the fear of failure seems to be the thing that holds so many people back from even taking a risk in the first place.
Yeah, I was in Vegas earlier this week. There's a lot of failures there. I was there at a Zillow convention, and they had awesome speakers, just a great slate of folks, and one of them was the CEO of Peloton, and Peloton is this cycle company that has created this community of fitness and other things. And so I have a $2,000 bike that sits in my basement collecting dust, right? But it's a Peloton, so I'm totally in with the community. But he was talking about it, and he had said, listen, your success, it won't last. It is fleeting, and so is your failure. And it was a really nice, harmonious point to be able to say, man, if you're at the top right now, that won't last. And if you're at the bottom, that won't last. And you're going to continue to ride this son of a gun roller coaster ride up and down. And you're going to scream through the whole thing. But it's better than the train that goes around the amusement park, right?
When I interview somebody for a job, I usually ask them to picture the worst possible scenario for the position I am hiring them. So, for example, I hire a position called street teamers. And so street teamers are people who go out and represent the brand of the radio station, live events, things like that. And I say, let's talk about the worst case scenario, and I'm just wondering how you would approach it. And a lot of people give me that, well, I would approach it with a lot of respect and this, and I'm like, no. Tell me how you, Greg, would approach this situation. Your cell phone's dead. We gave you the wrong address. There is, there were supposed to be 5 people, but there's only you. There's no gas left in the tank. What are you going to do? And I have so much respect for the people who tell me, like, poof, I would spend a couple minutes thinking about just walking away and mailing the keys to the KFGO vehicle back to the station later that day. Or the folks who say, I thrive in chaos, and so you'll probably see me do my best work when I'm struggling to make something happen. And I wish that there was a moment in everybody's life where they could just go back immediately and think about that. When did something not work out, and how did you react to it? Because there's a lot of strength in just raising your hands and say, like, you know what, this, at the end of the day, I'm still, I'm not taking a dirt nap. Nobody died. Everybody, their lives are still going to go on. Heck, at my wedding, we had things that didn't go right. But at the end of the day, all I want to do is be married to Jill.
Right.
So if nobody showed up, if the caterer didn't get there, if Tucker had decided that he was going to, run away with a bridesmaid, it doesn't matter.
Tucker, how was the wedding, by the way?
Take it or leave it.
Okay.
Food was good.
Then I don't feel so bad about missing.
Couldn't hear anything.
Did I miss it if I didn't get invited? I don't think I missed it.
That's a question.
So I was a little. I think here's the first big disappointment for me at this wedding. So I pull up to the venue and it's pouring rain outside. It is raining.
Super schmucky, from what I've heard.
So I walk in. Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. So I walk in because I was like the night before. I was like, JJ, do I got to wear a tie to this thing? And he said, no, just dress the way you normally do. And I was like a homeless guy. Great.
Oh, good.
So I showed up.
No, you're dressed like my 2-year-old son right now. So that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. That's my whole. That's my mystique. That's
pretty cute.
That's what I do. But no, I walk in. And I'm like, oh, I bet people are making Alanis Morissette jokes already because it's raining on his wedding day. So I walk up to JJ and I go, how many Alanis Morissette jokes have you heard today? And he goes, none. Why? I went, oh, let me be the first one. And then I was kind of disappointed that all my other friends who were there didn't have the wherewithal to make a joke.
It was the low-hanging fruit that they just passed up on.
It was easy. And maybe they all thought the same thing. Like, everyone has already said that joke. I'm not going to say
that thing. Well, I had so many older folks come up and say, it's good luck.
It's good luck.
Good luck.
My second and fourth marriages both had rain on them.
Yeah. Other than that, anything else that disappointed you in my wedding?
Not really. I mean, the food was good. The company was great. You and Jill were radiant. Couldn't hear a damn thing.
Oh,
there
look at
it
that.
is. Yeah, that's what the Facebook pictures told me.
And I actually hate going to weddings, but I actually hate going to weddings unless it's someone I care about.
Sure.
Which I care about JJ, and
Do you
I care
get
about
invited
Joe.
to a lot of weddings of people you don't care about?
Yeah. Oh, I have in the past. Like if you're dating someone,
I'm just so popular. So like all the time I get these wedding invitations.
It's usually like if it's like an obligation type thing, right? So maybe it's a cousin you don't know that well or something like that.
Yeah.
Those things I hate.
What's your favorite kind of event? Like if you're going to, there's weddings.
Tractor
maybe
pull.
Not weddings. Maybe a bar mitzvah or
Totally
two.
a tractor pull.
Okay, so have you actually been to a tractor pull?
I was guessing what his is. I don't actually know.
Because tractor pulls are surprisingly fun.
That's what I hear. I want to break my tractor pull cherry and
we should do an episode live from the steam threshers. Hey, remind us, Eric, later on next year to go steam threshers. Okay,
that sounds great.
Okay,
yeah. As I talked about, I'm very manly, so these are all things that I have no idea what you just said. I don't know what even a steam or a thresher is. Yeah. So my favorite kind of event. Zillow threw this party at Topgolf. And so here's what I loved is there was music, there were drinks, there were people bringing me food. I got to golf, and then they had a live band that was just so energetic. And so why I think I like that is there were spaces and places to be in the noise. And like we had a guy on our trip who had a few extra libations, and we're watching from 3 floors above, watching him dance like the whitest dad I have ever seen in my life. This guy's in his mid-20s and does like the hand twirl like as though he's a California raisin.
Sweet.
Like he was just so in his own element and was just able to shut out the rest of the world. Or if you wanted to go have a great conversation, it was a curated event, and people just kept bringing me drinks and food. So to be waited on is great. To not pay for it is great. To be able to do a fun little hobby thing is great. To be able to dance and sing and like it was a cover band that covered every single song you'd ever want to know all the words to.
Did they do the thing where all the employees dance in like a line at Topgolf?
They did not.
So
do they? I had never
Yeah.
been to Topgolf. It was my first time.
I went to one in California that did, and the reason I was there was because for my job I was filming this feature for the in-show where we had all these poker players going and playing at Topgolf, and then we were like featuring the area. And
So you had Phil Hellmuth dancing for you?
yeah, well, I have footage of Phil Hellmuth kind of doing this weird little jig.
He might officially be the whitest dancer on
He
earth.
absolutely
Yeah.
is.
Okay.
I've got so many Phil Hellmuth stories I can tell you, dude. I've hung out a lot with that guy. But yeah, so like all the employees got in this massive line, and I forget what song they were dancing to. They did it with gusto. They didn't seem to mind that they were doing it. And then I asked the woman who was one of the managers that I was interviewing, how often do you guys do that? And she's like, no, 5-6 times a day.
That reminds me of like going to Ed DeBevick's in Chicago, which is a super fun restaurant. But then all of a sudden the jukebox plays and you just tell they hate their life for that like 4-minute period.
Yeah, they're no longer acting annoyed. They are
Yes,
literally annoyed.
Absolutely they are.
I will say, though, as a non-golfer, Topgolf is a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah,
a
just
lot of fun.
A great environment. And they brought in, again, a band. And so there's 1,000 people. And some I liked, some I didn't. But if I didn't like them, I could just get away from them. So it was nice.
I broke up with a girl at the Lone Star Steakhouse once. And just as we were getting into the conversation of like, listen, this really isn't working out for me, it was... and everyone comes out and they're doing a line dance for the people we're in a booth, but the people in the table are seated.
Were you trying to talk over it?
At first I was.
This isn't going to work out. This isn't. You're not.
It's not you. I gave up eventually, and we just stared at each other. And because they were dancing right in front of us, we were locked into that booth the whole time. And so we're just sitting there, and I'm like, oh, boy, would I have killed for an extra 30 seconds before this
Who
happened?
picked the location?
I did.
Why were you?
It was a coupon-based decision. A lot of my...
And she didn't break up with you as you breaking up with her. How about that?
Yeah, I made a lot of decisions based on where I had a gift card to or a coupon. I was the person who cut the coupons out of the phone book.
Ah.
Yeah. I
I saw
the
phone books
book
getting
coupons.
delivered downtown last week, and I thought,
Still make those.
there's something.
Those are going to get recycled soon.
Yeah,
They're
I
getting
can't wait to
skinnier
throw
and skinnier every year.
Yeah, that makes one of us. Yeah.
When was the last time you cracked open a phone book? You really had to think about it.
Well, I mean, I know actually when, but it was not to look up a number. It was to go, they still make this.
Okay.
And I was doing some contract work at Sundog earlier this year, and one of the managers came in and was like, anyone want a phone book? We just got 10 of them delivered to the floor. And then they just sat on this, communal table out in the main room for about 2 weeks. And so, yeah, I picked one up, cracked it open, and it's almost no personal listings anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost entirely business listings. And the businesses that are using it are definitely ones that cater to like an older clientele.
Yeah. Your Nana's going to read that.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
I picked up a phone book probably 2 years ago because it was sitting there, and then I made a reference from The Jerk, and I said, Johnson, Navin R, typical bastard. Yeah.
Damn it. I damn that, sir. That's my favorite joke.
Yes,
from that
sir.
movie.
I damn thee. Yeah.
My dad used to know all the things that he listed in order from like, all I need is this chair and this dog and this
that's it.
ping
I
pong
need
paddle.
this. Yeah. That's by the way, one of my favorite movies of all time. I think it's Steve Martin's first movie. But I had no idea how offensive it was until I was older, and then I quoted it in the wrong crowd, and there was like an actual record that stopped. Yeah, and people just looked at me like, you can't say that, and I thought, oh, thanks, Mom.
Yeah. I had a lot of moments like that growing up. So my parents never put any restrictions at Take-Two Video. And I heard you today mention Videoland.
Mention
Eric
Videoland.
worked at Videoland.
No, Jason
Or
Spiess worked at
did.
Videoland. I just rented
I worked
a
at
lot of
Videoland.
movies. You did.
Yeah, I worked at Videoland right towards the decline. I mean, we knew Rudy Sigmund
Yeah.
as I was growing
Oh,
up,
of
so that
course.
was the place to go. And graduated high school in 03, and my first job after high school was working at Videoland.
Yeah, I spent a lot of money there.
Yeah, but by the time I started working there, they were only getting about 5-6 customers a day, and by the time I ended, it was like
Was that
2
when it was
customers a
back
day.
in the place right across from, just south of Red River Lanes, or
So-
was it the one in the strip mall?
So it wasn't where the Cost Cutters was.
Yep.
It was when it was right behind. Right. The last location that
Yep.
they had, which I think is still just
vacant.
shuttered and
Yep.
sitting there.
Yep. You can rent it out for like $600 a month. I had a photographer friend looking at it, but yeah, I'm not sure what you would do with that.
Yeah, interesting.
So, anyways, back to your video story.
So my parents never had any restrictions on it, and so my sister and I would go and we'd get 5 for 5 for 5 at Take Two, and my education in all things R-rated came at a very, very, very early age.
yeah,
And so I was quoting movies that I should not have been quoting to kids at like on the playground. And I remember the teachers being like, where'd you hear that? And I'm like, oh, this weekend I watched The Jerk 22 times. Thinking it'd be really impressive, but they didn't think so.
I was raised by Steve Mahoney and the Police Academy gang. Like they and USA Up All Night and Rhonda Shear, like those were the things that raised me. I remember, I think I was like 9 years old. It would have been 1989. And my mom, my sister, and I went to a movie on Easter for the first time ever. And we went to go see White Men Can't Jump. And White Men Can't Jump is not the best family Easter movie. And my mom would always tell the story of how she almost walked out of the theater with us when he did this one scene. And every time my mom would mention it, my skin would crawl a little bit because it was an inappropriate thing for my mom to say around me. I was totally uncomfortable with it. So I can't imagine the inverse of us as kids saying that around our parents and how they must have just wanted to shake the bejesus out of us.
And just be like, I'm so disappointed in my parenting right now. Just think of the mistakes that you're going to feel when Finley and Simon get older and they start, singing John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt, but they're really not hitting the Schmidt out of it.
Can't wait.
Yeah, it'll be good times as a parent. And that at that point too, you kind of just say like, they said it, I didn't. It's kidsy and kids.
Yeah.
Right. The kids. Everyone likes the kids. Ugh. So tell us a little bit about the Hatch coaching because I'm really intrigued by that.
So to give the full perspective is Hatch Realty opened up in January 2014. So now we're almost 5 years old. And I've been coached as a realtor for as long as I've been a full-time realtor, so 7 or so years. And most of the realtor coaches I had were telling me how to sell houses. And like I figured out how to sell houses. Like that was an easy, natural thing. I didn't know the difference between drywall and sheetrock for years. And now it turns out it's the same thing. So who would have thunk? But I knew how to care for people. And all these coaches would be talking to me about, okay, you need to sell more houses and you got to pay attention to your P&L and all these other business things that really didn't ever feel formidable for me. And so I was in a coaching company where I was getting coached and doing these mastermind events. And I was about ready to quit because I just wasn't seeing the value. And they came and they said, Eric, do you want to be a coach with us? And I'm like, that's it. I'd love to. I'd love to try to be an influencer in your world. And so I started coaching people and I would talk to them on the phone for an hour or two a month and I would give them business advice and I'd help them sell more houses. But I really got passionate about talking about leadership and talking about the way in which we treat people, not as transactions, but as people that we really deeply value. And so through that whole process, I realized that I was on the struggle bus because I was coaching in a system that was built around transactions and I was coaching in a system that wanted people to sell more houses. And I wanted
The
to
incentives were all wrong.
Yeah. I wanted to coach people on how to be better people. I wanted to coach people on how to be a caretaker instead of a taker. So through that, I ended up leaving that company and started my own. And I had some realtor friends who had essentially reached out and said, we like what you have. There's something special in your sauce. Would you be interested in coaching me? And so I said, yeah. And I didn't really know how to build a coaching company. Nobody coaches a coach on how to coach a coaching company, right? And how to build it. And so we have just fumbled our way through it. But we've done some different things. I was at the Fargo Theater yesterday for 2.5 hours, and I did a leading from the middle presentation for people. And we charge $25 a head. Realistically, it's 15 for groups. And so by the end of the day, after we pay all the bills, I think I made like $700 for 50 plus hours of work into it. And I don't do it for the money. Like, I do it because I'm called to be a multiplier and I'm called to influence. And we have a tagline with Hatch Coaching that's redefining how people treat people. And so in our community, I think that if we can influence the influencers, and if we can help people who have folks that are in their charge to be better for them, this is a cooler place to live. And if we can take people that are on the front end and the consumer-facing side, whether it's with clients or customers, and they can deliver a higher level of service, and they can not try to monetize someone, but they can just value somebody, I think that is helping to redefine how people treat people. And then in the real estate industry, we've grown a pretty successful business quickly, and we're the number 43 team in the country. And so we have a captive audience, and that's actually where we make our money. I don't make a dime doing it here in town. I, in fact, probably lose money doing it in town. But I go and I can charge a pretty penny to these realtors who want what we have, because I'm still in the game. I'm still CEO of Hatch Realty. I'm not selling houses, but I'm leading our people every day alongside some other great leaders. And this coaching company now has scaled to the point where we're doing events that bring people locally, where we will go and speak elsewhere. So I speak in Louisville in a couple months, and then we'll go to LA for an event, and like all these things that we're doing. And we don't know what we're doing yet. We know why we're doing it. When you have the why figured out, the how really is just secondary. So we're figuring out the how, but we have the why pretty nailed down.
And that's so exciting to me. And I love the fact, too, that you've chosen Fargo to be your home.
Mm-hmm.
And because you could easily pack up and move to the Twin Cities. You could move to Chicago. You could continue doing what you're doing, and you'd have a hub airport, so you wouldn't have to have a connection in between.
Yeah, this is a 2-flight town for sure.
It really is.
Unless you're going to Vegas on a Thursday.
And I'm just too tall and chubby for Allegiant. Yeah. They charge you per love handle, so it's really true. It's not as cheap as you think.
Last time I flew on an Allegiant flight to Vegas, I sat next to a nun.
Oh.
And it was for my bachelor party weekend. And I'm like, ooh, I'm sorry, ma'am, but you're going to hate my group of friends and really fast.
It's funny. I've flown so many times now in the past 4 or 5 years. I bet I've flown 120, 130 plus times in the past because of my previous job.
Yep.
And they're all sort of blurring together now for me, except Delta. I'm a Delta guy. But if I say that to someone...
You like those Stroop waffles?
Yeah, oh my goodness, those are so good. And their boarding procedure makes sense. Some other things, boarding procedure, they'll split you up into 20 different groups, call them out of order, give them weird names. And Allegiant's one of those too. But of course, we're not banking on any Allegiant sponsorship dollars anytime soon, I can say that.
I really am. Are you TSA pre-check?
Yeah.
Time
matters in my life, and I'm also gold, which is very nice. And so what I'm learning is that you should always book just like a coach, and then you'll automatically get upgraded to business class or first class. And then I have about 500,000 miles, so I just fly for free. Right? It's not for free. I've paid for it, but inadvertently. And so flying to Vegas earlier this week, I booked coach, and I got an exit row seat. So I'm like, if it's worst case scenario, I'm still okay. I'm 6'2", 300 pounds, and I was the smallest guy in that exit row. It was god awful.
You're like, if this plane goes down, we are all screwed.
I didn't spend the extra 10,000 miles that I could have or should have to put myself in something that had at least a little more space. But I'm learning I'm pretty pretentious because I'm like, this isn't first class anymore. I have to sit a little tighter, and then I don't get more Biscoff cookies. Like, I was pretty upset.
Flying into Vegas once, I got seated between an older couple that wanted to sit on either side of me because one wanted the aisle and one wanted the window.
They wanted you in the middle.
They wanted to talk to each other the whole time and to me, even though I had headphones in. That was one of the longest flights of my life.
Oh my gosh.
Because I'm just trying to like read a book, not paying attention, and they're having this conversation. And I said, hey, would one of you want to switch seats with me so you can sit together? And they're like, no, we're good.
Ouch. Well, shame on you for booking a middle seat. You did that to yourself.
The company booked it for me. It wasn't, you know.
That's why you don't work for the company anymore.
That's why.
Perfect sense.
Yeah, they were really trying to push him out the door. And they're like, this will be the thing that finally breaks the camel's back right there. Erik, we've taken up almost an hour of your time, and I know that your time is precious. So thank you very much for being a guest. Is there anything that, if you had a message to talk to all the people who are listening to this, and they listen not only in Fargo-Moorhead, but all over the country, all over the globe, what's something that we could do to be better as people?
Ooh, good question. I'm gonna honestly ponder this for just a moment because I don't want to just jump to what feels like the easy answer.
And that's why I pose it at the end.
Yeah,
Because
thank you. I saw something on Facebook the other day that said that when we talk, we're just repeating information that we already know. And when we listen, we're proposing that we're going to learn something new. And I'm a guy that talks a lot, and so I'm just giving myself some advice, and I'd imagine there's going to be other people that are like-minded. We are in a divisive time in our country, and it's fascinating to see, and yet we're also in an opportunistic time. And if we can just change the approach to try to learn rather than to try to deliver monologues and our own personal opinion, we got a lot to learn from a lot of people. And trying to approach things with an open mind and with some honesty and some genuine curiosity, because the opposite of curiosity is ego. Okay, if you have your ego, you're confident that you know everything, but if you're curious, you're really trying to figure out something new. And we're going to be in a really great place when we all start trying to figure out something new and we don't think we have it all figured out. So the older I get, the dumber I become, because I realize how vast this world is and how small a piece I play in it. Yet I think there's still some cool stuff that can happen through me and with me. So there you go.
that's cool stuff. Eric, if people want to seek you out, how are they going to find you?
So it's Erik with a K, Erik Hatch on Facebook, the Erik Hatch on Instagram, Erik Hatch on Twitter, or you just Google my name and it'll show you all those things anyways.
Right.
Yeah.
No want ads either, so good for you.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so, but something to look forward to.
Yeah. You're going to end up on a stamp one day.
You mean it?
Yeah,
You think
and
there's going to be mail?
I think, definitely. Here's what I think.
I don't know
US
what I'm more
I'm
shocked
kinda
by.
with him.
The prediction that mail will exist or the prediction that I'll be on a stamp. I don't know which one is more
No.
fascinating.
I mean, what are
Target's-
stamp collectors going to do?
Target is going to buy the U.S. Postal Service, and they're going to do the one thing that I think would save them immediately, which is open Postal Service kiosks outside of TSA areas so that rather than throw away that bottle of cologne that just happens to be over 3.2 ounces, you can ship it back home. They can charge premium airport prices. If you're listening, Postal Service, I've been saying this for years, and that's going to help.
Wow.
So that's my idea. There's always going to be
Let's
a
go on
Postal
Shark
Service.
Tank and make that happen.
Let's do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
By the Postal Service.
Listen, here's the deal. Not only could you buy the Postal Service, but it's way cheaper than you would imagine right now.
I'm sure it is.
And then you could be the Postmaster General. Who wouldn't like that?
That's I think you get to wear like shorts and long socks with that. That sounds
All
nice.
the time, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just imagining the postal workers that why don't wear ankle socks is beyond me. They're just always mid calf.
I always figured that the Postmaster General lives in a giant version of the safari hat that they wear during the summer. You know, that little pith helmet that they wear. But like it's a big version of that and it's got a little door.
I always thought the calf length socks were to ward off dog attacks, but then again, I don't know how protective they would actually be.
Ward off dog attacks and estrogen.
There you go. Because that keeps below to the ground. That's where that is.
I don't know.
Our guest was Erik Hatch. Thank you so much, sir.
It's my pleasure.
JJ Meets World.
That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode of JJ Meets World and would like to help us continue to produce 2 new episodes every week, you can donate to our Patreon. Check out patreon.com/JJ Meets World and donate today. Even as little as $1 a month can go a long way. Visit our website at www.jjmeetsworld.com or hit up our social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the sites the kids are using these days. If you'd like to stay up to date on new episodes of JJ Meets World, you can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, YouTube, or wherever you consume the podcast that you love. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by checking out www.moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, go to linebenders.com, and you can find direct contact info for JJ. It turns out that raw chicken wasn't actually chicken. It was just a plastic bag.